Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Happy 4th of July, everyone. I'm trying to put this out here early. We're recording it early, so hopefully everything goes smooth. Been hitting big numbers still over the summer. I know it's a slow period, so thank you to everyone for reaching out. Make sure to go to southboundsports.com and subscribe, tell your friends, and let's keep it rolling. We're only, by the time this is out, we'll be less than a month away from the first NFL preseason game that I believe takes place on August 3rd. So we're getting so close. And we're in the period right now where there's almost nothing going on. I think the Women's World Cup is going to be next year, which I hope it's in the summer again. But that would kind of take a little bit of it away. Baseball's going strong. My Braves have the best record in baseball. They don't have the most wins because they played 4 games less than Tampa Bay played, which seems odd because I feel like Florida would be hit more with the rain. But I'm hoping they can keep it going. You know, hitting the All-Star break with the best record means nothing. Gotta end the season on a hot streak. So I honestly like the baseball now. Anyone like Pirates fans are getting really hyped there when their team was making a run. And then you get more and more into the season, and things just fall off. They fall off. Now the Pirates are, 5 games below 500? There's no way they're coming back. There's no way. It felt like maybe a month ago that we were talking about them being in first, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was longer, like further away. I feel like when we talked about it, they've lost the rest of their games since then. Like, I feel like they had 30-something wins. They have 39 right now. Atlanta has 56. Like, that's the gap. But, like I said, it's slow summer period. The heat is cracking up. We hit up the beach last week. It's pretty nice. The water was warm. So, much better to be outside anyway than indoor watching sports. But, anything you want to hit on with Major League Baseball or anything before we get into some football stuff?
No, I mean, preparing for the All-Star break coming up and trying to get some of that stuff ready. That's usually the time where the Pirates typically collapse. So
they did it early this year, baby. You can go. What did I do? I showed someone a picture once where I was like sitting behind home plate, and they were like, "How'd you get those tickets? Like, that's unreal. Like, I feel like no one would be able to get them tickets." I'm like, "Have you seen the Pirates Stadium? Like, it's empty." We walked in. We didn't even pre the tickets. Someone just gave them to us outside for face value. It's like, and that was probably heaven sent for the guy selling them because he was probably like, "Good Lord, I'm gonna have to eat these tickets because no one's gonna want them." Who knows how long he was standing out there with them? But that's kind of where it's at because like it's a bazillion degrees. Because like I have the Big Ten 10K coming up in like 2 weeks. With my foot issue, like I've been kind of taking it easy, kind of just doing what my watch is doing. I've been making a little bit of progress, but like I'm probably not going to get under an hour again, which is I was hoping to do. And it's just so hot that like I come in, I'm completely drenched in sweat. And so it doesn't even make me want to get up and run. Like I have to wake up early to even feel like it's kind of normal. Unless it's going to rain. When it starts to like rain, then it gets cut down. But
well, and that can be a challenge too, because if you're having trouble with sleep, and the only answer is to run, like get up early and run, then like you're cutting into sleep time to run, which is going to make you more tired. Like it just creates a really difficult cycle to get out of.
Well, I told you like now my answer is like I can't get up early. I have to run like over lunch, and then you get heat like acclimated to the heat, and then I can't go into places like it's too cold for me. Like the cold almost makes me feel like sick. Even now, like. I feel like my sinuses got blasted for some reason, like over the weekend. I don't know if it was allergies coming back or what, but I'm like, I just want it to be like a normal temperature. I guess there's like a heat wave coming on right now, so maybe it won't be as bad whenever I run. It honestly doesn't feel as humid down here. It just feels like the crushing heat, and I'm like, this feels not too bad. But I know once I start running, I'm going to be like dead. Plus, I don't even know what the air quality is. I keep getting air quality alerts. And I feel like that's never happened. Like, did we get air quality alerts growing up?
No.
I feel like I live near Fort Bragg, and I feel like we got them there because of the military stuff. And that was the only time I ever remember getting them. And I only lived there for a couple of years. And then I just started to notice, like, in the past 2 years, like, we've been getting a lot of them. Maybe since COVID, and it's like, well, I never had these before. I do have a ton of those running masks. Like, I have a bunch, like the Big Ten one that they gave us for the first year of the Big Ten 10K virtual. I wish they would keep doing that. I got my Michigan shirt right here. If you're watching the video for this year's 10K. That came in along with my medal. I don't even know what I did with the medal though. But other than that, like, we don't get the nice, whatever the heck they're called. I don't even know what they're called, so I probably can't even look them up to buy them. But I did get a Packers one, which was
like
nice.
the face gator.
Yeah, but they're like the thin ones that are supposed to be just to help, like, breathe. So they kind of warm you up, but, like, if you're running in the summer, it just gets drenched with sweat and it just, like, falls down. I feel like you almost need one of those, like, Bane type masks from Batman to, like, run. I see people running with those, or like they run like they're running from Chernobyl, and I'm like, buddy, that has to be 5 pounds on your face. I don't know what those ones are called. Have you seen them? They're like the pure gas mask looking ones.
I've seen them, but I don't know. I would think that would be more of that would bother me more than having to try to wear one.
Well, I feel like some people have those on because it makes your lungs stronger. It makes it tougher to breathe. But maybe I'm just crazy and that's not what it's for at all. I don't know. I see people running in them and I'm already miserable and sweaty and I'm like, buddy, take it off.
Well, specifically for training purposes, I'm sure there's some level of value to it. But I know even up here in the north, I think you run more than a mile, it's going to be completely soaked.
Yeah, like I feel like it's going to be soaked no matter what until you get to the cold. Because, like, I like wearing mine when it starts to get pretty chilly because it, like, keeps your neck warm and stuff and you're breathing and it, like, kind of warms you up. And so, like, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like my nose is going to frostbite off. But I also don't like really running with headbands. But now I have my hair back, put the headband on because if not, I just constantly have sweat in my eyes. And I don't want to, like, run with a towel. But I guess maybe that's my next part of doing it. I think I want to mix in biking, though. Because remember, I think we talked about having that study with, like, triathletes. I don't even know if I brought that up. But that old study came up on one of my timelines. And I was like, yeah, where if you're, like, a triathlete using the muscles, they last longer compared to someone that's just, like, sitting and not using them. Like, a 70-year-old's muscles look better than a 40-year-old guy that just sits around. So, like, mixing it up. Because, like, swimming in the ocean, waves were high, choppy, pretty brutal. So, like, having that type of stuff, but, like, even hearing about, like, players, like old NFL players drowning, it's like kind of like a scary thing. Like, if it's that choppy, should I be out here swimming long distances with my watch? Probably not. But I don't know. For the football, we'll get into the USFL first because I want to talk college. I probably will be short again. I think last episode came short. But like I said, it's summer period. Maybe some people like that. USFL championship, Birmingham wins back-to-back. Beat Pennsylvania teams both years. Last year it was Philly in a closer game. Philly last year had a winning record, but barely. This year, Pittsburgh comes in with a losing record, gets swamped. I forget what the final score was. It was like 28-12. I do have it up. So where Pittsburgh jumps out to, like, just hitting field goals, and then that's it. Like, Birmingham put up the 14, and then they just coasted after that. Like, that was it.
It was almost like the Pittsburgh Steelers gave them the game plan. Like, just kick field goals. Eventually it'll come out on top.
That's what they came down to: 4 field goals, 4 touchdowns. Skip Holtz was the coach, which I didn't even realize he was the head coach. So it's funny because, like, he was at Florida State for a while as a grad assistant. He's where he started, and then he made his, like, jump. Like, he was at East Carolina, and that was supposed to be, like, they were big. And he went to South Florida when they were rising up, and both schools have since cratered. If he would have just stayed at East Carolina, and tried to do what maybe like Gary Patterson did, I guess, or like maybe even like Frank Beamer going all the way back with Virginia Tech, like try to ride that up. North Carolina is a hot market right now. East Carolina has fallen off so bad that like App State's considered the third best team public in the state anyway. You have North Carolina, NC State, and then it's App State, I think most people know. Throwing out Duke and Wake Forest, of course. But in terms of like a school getting elevated to that level, you really only have two choices. East Carolina might have been a valuable third for a conference like the Big 12. And now they're probably going to end up with like Duke, Wake Forest. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like East Carolina, they're done. I don't see any path for them because everything's happening right now. I feel like after the Skip Holtz thing, and Skip Holtz kind of hurt South Florida too because they fell off so bad. And then they had their issues with, didn't they have issues with Levitt coming back? And they were like player abuse or something.
They had Levitt, and then after Charlie Strong fizzled out of Texas, he resurfaced there.
Yeah, and then he got fired. I feel like that was their last chance. And he was fired right after, I think, Skip Holtz. Like, it was like a weird thing that happened. And now, or maybe he was fired before they hired Skip Holtz, and then he kind of floated around. It was like a whole weird situation, because he was kind of behind. I almost wonder if he was behind Colorado's big year. Because that was the rumor, is that Colorado has one good year in the Pac-12, and that was the year Jim Levitt was there, and there were rumors that he was kind of given the reins, and then they had the same type of issue with like players' complaints, which kind of line up, and it's like, all right, well, if there's smoke, there's fire at some point. And who knows, maybe he was the guy behind it, and just couldn't take it. But
yeah,
going back to the USFL, I feel like I'm kind of let down. Maybe it's because of the way the TV network stuff lined up, where last year it was on Fox. I feel like people were talking about it more. This year it's all on NBC and Peacock. I talked about the Peacock getting like the Big Ten, and they're still kind of like toying around with their subscription pricing. I haven't really heard any solid details on like what you need for football, but we're definitely going to hit that for the Big Ten. I'll try to keep everyone informed on what you need to watch the most Big Ten games. Because like even with ESPN app, I saw a write-up because, well, I'll talk about the ESPN layoffs in a second. But the other thing with USFL, I wish that they would, this is my last note on it, I wish they would get rid of divisions. I talked about it before. I feel like we're seeing college conferences go that route. And you could have a better playoff with only 4 teams making it. I know you only have 8 teams or whatever, but you're putting on your best game, the game you want everyone to watch, and it's a 2-touchdown blowout with the record of 4-6 of the team playing a team that's 8-2. And I guarantee that maybe New Orleans or whatever, maybe they got kind of smoked too in their playoff game. But maybe having them come in and get one more game might have gave them a better chance. But to me, there's not enough players to have a pure North and South split. That was my only beef with it. You try to watch the game, and it's not interesting, so you kind of just zone out. It's hard to force yourself to watch a sport when it's not as exciting on TV because the crowd's not there, right? And then it's not a good game. So
I think that's fair. You know, and I saw the comments from Daryl Johnston that he was frustrated with the lack of energy and support for the USFL. And I almost get the impression that by like we knocked the XFL for not advertising or like putting out more information on what's going on with their league. But I feel like the USFL, like they were advertising more for their league, but it was so vague with like, tune into the USFL this weekend, but not really highlighting any of the coaches, any of the players, any of the like the marketing stuff. I just felt like was so flat that there wasn't a lot of connection to those teams. And I know you've said before about, well, you're trying to create within the pod some consistency with playing games in the same spots, but it was like they restricted fan access, which I think hurts some of it. And I don't know if they were just worried about trying to have like to put too much emphasis on the in-stadium experience that we're concerned. Like I don't know what went into that thought process that you take out a big attraction of bringing the live atmosphere to the game. And I agree 100% with you with like I got home from vacation yesterday right in time to watch the game. Like and under any other normal circumstance I would have been dialed in. And it was like I saw the first half and I saw the field goal fast, and like it was hard to stay engaged with it, thinking, oh, is there going to be some big play happening? And honestly, if I didn't think that we would talk about it on the show this week, I don't know that I would have stayed with it as long as I did.
That's the only reason I even have any awareness of it, is so we can talk about it on the show, because there's like almost, other than baseball, which we're not going to pivot and just start talking baseball, but the one thing that stood out to me, and this is for the entire regular season, like Fox Sports owns it. Fox Sports has their own trouble. Like they're kind of aren't like they're their own kind of thing, but they give the ownership kind of to NBC for the broadcast. So now you're split with games on NBC and Fox, Peacock and USA. Because like NBC wants to put on USA for whatever reason. Like you can't let that channel die. I don't understand why they're trying to force streaming with Peacock, but yet they are also putting it on USA. Like I'm never paying for cable again, ever. I don't care if I miss Michigan games or whatever. I'll be able to watch most of the big ones on regular TV for free. I know that because Michigan's a big time brand. I understand some fans might not have that luxury, but like the USFL, to your point, yeah, let's bring everyone into one location. They pick small ass cities that like you're going to have two separate teams that aren't tied to that city. So like, let's say if we're playing in Canton, I can't go get Canton gear. I live in Canton. I have to buy Pittsburgh gear or Michigan gear. Like, well, I can't remember which teams are which, but, like at that point, just put them in New York and just call them both New York. Like, I feel like you're going to have, if you're going to make a unique town where you're going to have your games, at least let people have pride in that. Not like, hey, we're going to be here, but we know your city kind of sucks. So we're just going to go ahead and make the teams be from completely other states. Like they don't even have one Ohio team, right? It's Pittsburgh, right. Michigan, like the two cities that people in Ohio hate, Pittsburgh and Michigan as a whole, right? It's like whoever came up with that idea has to be so brain dead that like, hey, yeah, everyone in Ohio likes the Steelers, right? Oh, and they definitely like Michigan Wolverines. That's perfect. No one has a whole song where they say about they don't give a damn about the whole state of Michigan, right? So it's like, nah, come down. Yeah, I don't even know if Michigan played there, but like those are the two closest teams. And then it's like, hey, New Jersey or whatever. Like maybe that's one of the ones that were mixed in, but it's like it made zero sense. Because like if you're going to try to give a small town a come up, it's kind of like a minor league baseball hat. I know people that have never been to a minor league baseball game, whatever. They wear the minor league baseball gear because they live by that, right? You can wear an Altoona Curve hat because you're like from Altoona, right? You might not go to the game or give any shits about the Pirates, but you know that that's the minor league team. Same with like State College. People that go to like Penn State, they live at State College, buy the State College Spikes. I don't even know if they're still around. Our baseball guru no longer on the show, but that's the kind of thing that the USFL is missing. They just took like, it's almost as if AI recreated the old USFL teams and spit out like these generic logos. like the New Orleans Breakers with like a wave and like a little seagull thing over it. Like, what the hell even is that? They're so generic. It's like, I would never wear that. So, come on. Michigan Panthers. It's kind of like the Lions logo. Did you see the new Lions helmet? They took like what? It was like the weirdest thing. They're like, yeah, they're stripes. We're going to put the stripes like on the lion instead of the top of the helmet. It's like, why? Why are you doing that?
We want to change it just enough to make a couple bucks.
We want it to be weird. Like, just do something even stranger. Make a cartoon lion. You do rights with Disney and have like just Simba's picture on there from Lion King or Mufasa. Mufasa's cooler, right? Even though he died. Spoiler for people that haven't watched one of the 800 forms of Lion King. You have that. Do anything other than just take your logo and put 2 lines over it. I could have did that drunk. I could have gave them that logo, charged them $1 million or whatever they charged. Because I guarantee some company made a ton of money off that. Because they were like, they had like the whole history written out about how they went back to 1958 or something. And how they had the 2 stripes on their helmet. So they're like, instead of putting them on the back on the helmet, we're going to actually just cover part of the line up with 2 stripes. And I know a bunch of Lions fans, and they're like talking about how they're like mixed feelings. I'm like, I wouldn't buy that. Why? I would not want to buy that at all. So that's how I feel about the USFL. Have a cool logo. Try to do something different. Like, remember back in like the cartoon days, like all the college teams had like cartoon logos. Like, that's still my favorite Michigan logo is the bear looking Wolverine, like the murder wolf guy. I think Auburn still has one, right? Oregon kind of uses theirs. Auburn uses their tiger, or does Clemson still have a tiger like that? I feel like every team kind of just copied whatever Disney was doing at that time, and they all have like the same version of the cartoon logo. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like, do that. Not this. Like, it honestly looks like they threw it through an AI generator, or like even Madden video game, or hell, even going back to like NFL quarterback club, I think had a thing like this, where you typed in like a generic logo and they had like 30 generic pictures to choose from based on it. Like, you could be the Gators and then pick one of the Gators. And that's kind of what they did here. And then you just change the colors for it and they're like, perfect, got it. So XFL, I feel like they're kind of trying to do it a little bit different, promoting players with the old names, things like that. USFL though is just so generic. I just can't get past it.
But the USFL, the one thing that they had that was a little bit different from the XFL, the XFL's like pushing this from the ground up with the teams and like where they're located at, and they're trying to push some of the marketing to build some notoriety within the teams. I feel like with the USFL, they've had like the old brand names from back when, like the 80s, when they were a viable competition to the NFL. And so like they're using some of the old team names that like I think is important to linking some of that history to the teams. But I think there's aspects of it that they're missing. And you know, I think the harder that they're going to try to push to be like the NFL, I think is going to be a really difficult model to follow, because I think even looking at the NFL teams, there's such a gap between your 1s and 2s, and as teams go through injuries, it's tough to bridge that gap. And I think when you're looking at an entire league made up of guys that have been previously cut from the NFL rosters, that's going to be a hard sell.
Well, see, that's what I'm looking at here. It's like going back to the old school logos. If they would have just kept them and like went there, like the Pittsburgh, what did I do with it? I do have it up. The Pittsburgh Maulers was like a big guy. Like he's like has his, sledgehammer held up, like he's flexing on it. The new guy's like he's just a generic sledgehammer guy. Looks like he's sledgehamming. That could be an ad for like a railroad company looking for people to hit railroad spikes, dude. Like that's not cool at all. The Bandits used to be a guy with a mask. Of course, they're not going to do that. They just have a generic like Lone Ranger guy on a generic looking horse. When the XFL has like a legit Kohler face mask logo with the Renegades. So it's like, hey, we took that, we're going to make it a little bit better. The USFL, to me, it's like, hey, nope, we got to make it corporate. Like, how do we make it better? Like the Gamblers, it's just a picture of the state logo. So, like, go back, do something. Like, the Generals used to be cool. Like, I don't understand why they just couldn't keep the old school logos. Like, the Stallions was an actual horse. It kind of looks like it would have been a brand for, like, cigarettes or something. Like a gold horse and the arches. Instead, they're like, no, we're just going to have the horse head almost exactly like every other horse team that you've ever seen. That's it. Like, there's no uniqueness in these. They kind of just made them garbage. Like the New Jersey Generals, they took the stars. They kind of looked like, I don't even know what they looked like. They almost looked like spurs from a shoe. And then they were like, nope, let's just make them a generic stars and two things. Like, I honestly could have made that in MS Paint in like 5 minutes. Like, that's, I think, is my biggest beef with these. So XFL kind of have the same issue with like generic things. Like, was it the LA Wildcats? It's just an L and an A. Like, so dumb. At least Houston tried to do like the old Oilers logo, but it really kind of doesn't make sense for their thing. But I'm like, whatever. I kind of know what they're going for there. So, I mean, the XFL names have kind of been around. What were the original teams? Aren't they kind of the same? Or did they completely change?
I want to say some of them have changed.
I'm trying to look and see. Everything's kind of split up. The 2001 would be... Oh, yeah, because they had Thunderbolts, Enforcers. Oh, yeah, they had the Hitmen. They should have kept the Hitmen, dude. Although their logo was just an H, so not really cool. But they kept, like, the Outlaws. I guess they did, kind of. Or did they keep the Outlaws? I'm getting too many tabs mixed up here.
From the Outlaws, probably became the Renegades.
Yeah, so, like, they kind of had them the same. Yeah, Renegades. They added, like, the Dragons. Dragons would be cool, but, like, no one's ever does that. They used to have the Demons, so I guess they kind of did the same thing, which is still my beef with them. Why take a football league, make it corporate? That's the one thing that everyone hates about the NFL. And it's like they're guaranteed, like, they're, like, trying to work with the NFL so hard that that's their goal. But to me, it should have been a big event. Should have been could have been a heck, what is it, when we were recording this Sunday night? Game should have been on right now. We could have been recording the show talking about it. But instead they shoved it on Saturday night for some reason. And like you said, coming back from vacation, like, how are you supposed to watch it? That's my issue with it. Anything else you want to hit on with that?
No, I think we knocked that one through.
Sorry, my sinuses are getting to me. The NFL, the only update we had from that is that they were coming in and they were going to continue investigating gambling and fantasy football allegations because of insider information. And I don't know how they're going to crack down on it if they're allowing people to do like fantasy and things like that. I know they're kind of cutting out like daily fantasy. But if they're going to allow like certain bets and things, like, let's say if you're doing an over-under on a guy's rushing yards, you know the game plan is to feed him 20 times. Easy bet on the over, right? So, like, some of the yard totals are kind of low. And if you had any bit of information, I feel like you can hit most of the time. I think the frustration with fantasy comes when you're expecting your guy to play. Like, who was it? Like, was it last year? One of my guys was like, I was so close to the championship. I ended up winning it. But there was one game going into the playoffs where I thought I was going to get screwed because they were supposed to play Derrick Henry, right? And they didn't. And it absolutely screwed me going into the playoffs. And I almost thought that I was going to be eliminated or something. Because they, like, the coach comes in and is like, yeah, Derrick Henry's going to play, blah, blah. But they sat his ass. He played like one snap. So then I had to bench him and like kind of ride it out or whatever. And you never know what's going to happen. So like having a little bit of that information can completely change your playoff situation in fantasy football, especially if a guy's playing year-round fantasy, because that's, I think, what it impacts the most, because you have a better chance of both you and your opponent having a guy randomly sit close to the playoffs, like close to the end of the season if they have a spot locked up, than you do having all of your guys healthy and playing in the playoffs. It's almost like who has the most depth or who can you pick up? That's one of our segments we do. It's a big hit. Everyone always tells me about it. Like, hey, you should do that more. It's like, it's kind of hard though, because I'm kind of guessing based on trends just like everyone else. So if I think a guy's going to get hot in our big league, some guys that might be available in smaller leagues, they're not available in ours. So I haven't done my research to give tips out like that. So I try to do that. If you have anyone hot, definitely reach out to the show and let us know. Because I'd love to bring in other guys, because I'm curious to see what positions people are like hitting early in the draft and stuff, which we'll talk about coming in. Because last year I did like the draft. We kind of did it live or whatever. And I was talking about my picks live, and I'm sure people were bidding me up, right? Why wouldn't they? So I know it happened like 2 or 3 times, and it didn't even matter, baby. God came down and smited everyone and let me win the championship, teaching them a lesson to try to rip me off, right? So that's what you need to know. If you stick with the good guys, you'll come out on top. Anything you want to hit for the NFL before I move on?
Well, just kind of piggybacking off of your point is I think the clearest way to do it is to just tell the players, if you are an NFL player and it pertains directly to anything related to football, you cannot bet on it. So it takes out the fantasy component. It takes out betting on games, betting on over-unders and things like that, because regardless of the position, if there is some implications of gambling, there can be the potential of any type of tampering that I think is not good for the game. Now, one of the comments that I saw recently was that, you know, as NFL players go to golf and you're able to make bets on that, NFL players can bet like on the golf thing because it's not directly related to the NFL. You know, I think it's easier if you just say it within the league games, anything that you can bet on regarding whether it's another team, you can't bet on it while you're an active player. Retire and then bet on whatever you want to do if that's the route you want to go. And I think that way it keeps it clean and there's no gray area of, well, I can bet on this, but I can't bet on that. I can be in this fantasy league, but I can't be in that. It's just a straight line of don't do it when you're playing, and then when you're done, you have the rest of your life to gamble on it if you want.
But what if you're not a big-time player? Like, oh, they're opening it up, and this is my thought. Let's say you make the league minimum, right? Banks will still see that you're an NFL player, and they'll give you a ridiculous loan because they don't care. They'll just foreclose on your house or whatever. But let's say you have a good tip on a bet, and you bet everything you have, and you're like, I'm going to make $10 million this weekend, as long as so-and-so doesn't get hurt. And you're on the sideline just praying. Or hell, even easier. You just bet the under, and you know he's not going to get like, oh yeah, we're going to take it light on you, buddy, because we don't want you to get hurt. So he has 5 carries, and as long as he doesn't break a 50-yard run, you're good. And you're like, hey, just go down, you know? Take it easy for real, bro. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to get a touchdown this week. It's like, perfect. I'll score on you not to score a touchdown, bet, win $10 million, and then if they suspend me or whatever, who cares? Screw them. Right? They're paying me the minimum. I'm set for life on this. It's not like they can come back and take the money.
Well, they could fine you for tampering.
You're not tampering, though. Like, the thing is, all they're doing is suspending these guys. Like, they're suspending Miles Austin for a year for betting on non-NFL sports or whatever. Oh, Calvin Ridley suspended for a year. Oh, okay, perfect. It's like, all right, all these guys are suspended for 1 year. Like, if you're only going to be in the league for 1 more year, who cares? Like, unless you have sights on, like, a job in the league. But if you're able to gamble and make $10 million, now, I'm not telling players to do that. That seems like it's insane, right? But let's just put that out there. I'm just saying, some of these guys might be desperate enough to where they're banged up, they're hurt, they know they're never going to play again. You bet. Is the league really going to look into you? Because it gives the league a black eye too.
But they may
They're not finding out about these guys till a year later, man. Right? It's taking like a long time for some of these guys to come up because like they're getting suspended now. Like there's not because they were betting like right now. It's summer. You're already retired now to the league. The NFL sits down, they talk about it. They're like, well, shit, he got us. Joe Schmo, backup left tackle, league minimum got us. Made $10 million on that bet. Damn, what a smart dude. He knew he just had to miss 2 blocks when that star running back was in to hit the under. Perfect. Collected, and that was it, man. Right?
And for that reason alone, with what you just described, is why I say just make it that you can't bet on your own sport, because then you're taking
they do have that
stuff out.
They do have that, but like, what happens? Right? The Player Association and the league are all making money on gambling, so they don't really want it to go to court, right? Because like what?
I mean, I feel like you're pushing such a fine line that I think just make it that, yes, the league and everything else, if they're collecting money off of the betting aspects of it, then so be it. But you got to find a way to keep it regulated.
All the government said to do is it has to follow the state law. If their state doesn't have anything about betting on your own sport, doesn't matter what the league says. Jack shit. If you're not going to be playing that much longer.
But if it's going to affect, I mean, then it's almost like how they say some of the fights are rigged.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a big issue, right? That's why they're trying to cut it off, because they know that people will know. You can't tell me you watch every Lions game versus the Packers and you're not kind of suspicious, Matt. Or like, there's a couple like college football games where it's just blatant, like the Michigan-Ohio State guy, where the 2 guys were supposed to not ever officiate an Ohio State game, but yet they're magically slapping Mike Weber on the ass on national TV. Like, how many times have you ever seen an official do that? Like, it's almost insane. There's ones where, what was the Iowa game? They played Florida. The Iowa guy got his face mask pulled and thrown to the ground. They called it face mask on him. Like, you can't tell me that officials in a bowl game in Florida magically call all the penalties on Iowa and there's not any semblance of rigging the game, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what's going to happen? Is the state of Iowa going to come down on Florida or, like, whatever? So, like, they have to kind of get it off because the NBA already had the problem where the officials are fixing the league. Are you telling me that the NFL or the NBA make any adjustments? No. Does it look like the NBA could be rigged still? Absolutely yes. Right? Like, how is that LeBron when there's like no lower seed teams make it in the NBA playoffs usually ever, and then you have a team with LeBron and then the Heat, which is in a big market in Miami, magically make it through the playoffs, right? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. The NFL the same way. There's some calls that are very questionable. The Steelers touchdown against the Patriots, right? Where they overturned it, the tight end. Remember that play? You're telling me that they had enough to overturn that? No.
You're right.
No. So you can't tell me that, oh yeah, all they have to do is tell the players no. It's like, yeah, but if you have officials doing the same thing, I don't care what the players do. Right? They're the ones out there doing it. You got to have a fair game all around. If I'm giving you a scenario that's realistic, where a tackle that's a journeyman, his knee's banged up, he knows it's his last year, he just got signed off the practice squad, he hasn't played in like 2 years because he's been basically relegated to the practice squad, and he comes in and he knows that if his starting running back, they already clinched the playoff spots, only getting 5 carries, and he knows that if he just misses his tackle a little bit, that running back's going to hit the under. He's like, I'm just going to go ahead and miss my block and let him get tackled and bet the under on his rushing yards, and I'm going to make a ton of money. That's a realistic scenario that could easily happen. Same with an official coming down late in like garbage time, where he's like, well, if they score a touchdown here, it's going to definitely kill the spread. Let me just call holding real quick. Right? You don't know. NBA is very easy to look at they called 7 fouls on so-and-so team with 3 minutes left. Oh, wow. Outrageous. And they're like, well, you know what? They definitely called more fouls on the other team. It's like, how do you know they didn't prepare that throughout the game? Like, you don't know that he can just look up and see how many fouls each team has. They have it on the score thing in the middle of the stadium. Like, oh yeah, shit, they have 5 more. I better call 5 more penalties real quick. Like, I guarantee he has that. He's like, I was called 5 penalties ahead, and then I'll even it up at the end when the game's on the line. Perfect. No one will know I'm betting on the games. Perfect. Officials in the NFL can do the same thing, except no one knows how many penalties are in each team because they don't show it. So it's even easier. They only know because after the show, me and you are bitching about it. Like, they called 20 penalties on that one team and only 3 on the other. It's like, outrageous. So that's what I don't like. The grandstanding about gambling, but you're showing ads and the ads are outrageous and I see them everywhere. It's so annoying. You want to cut down on game time? Get rid of all these ads. If the NFL came out and said, you know what? We know gambling's legal, but there's not going to be any. We're telling our TV partners, Fox, NBC, CBS, if you're broadcasting our game and you show an ad, our contract is now void and we're going to broadcast with someone else. All the networks would immediately stop showing gambling ads. Doesn't matter if it's legal in each state. The NFL could easily do that, but they won't because they want the money. That's why I don't care if players are rigging the game, Matt. It could already be the NFL or the WWE for all I care. You can't change it from WWF to WWE and then pretend like it's not rigged. Right? Roman Reigns just lost, Matt, for the first time. It's like, oh, you mean they finally wrote him out of the script? Like, he's not like he lost, right? It's like, oh yeah, I lost at work today. They wanted me to retire. It's like, you lost? What is that? What do you mean? Like, yeah, they just told me that I had to, take a dive. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like eating with them at a Waffle House. It's like, yeah, it's a very sad day. It's like, you need me to pick up your bill, buddy? Give you a little present. Anything else you have? I know I'm hot on the gambling thing because I'm just so tired of seeing all the ads. And I'm so tired of seeing all the mixed signals. It's like, oh yeah, you can go bet on horses. Hey, bet on a crap game. The NFL thing is like, hey, you can go bet on a crap game in the back alley. As long as it's not another one of the sports that we name. Right?
I got you.
So how about I just go back outside Pittsburgh Stadium and I set up some craps, Matt. And I was like, yo, guys. Or throw some bones out there, Yo, guys, come over here. I got a game going. They wouldn't care about it, though, right? As long as it's legal. I get like PNC or Heinz Ketchup. Heinz Ketchup's not associated with the stadium anymore. I'll get them to sponsor my games. We'll buy a curb spot. I'll just sit out there in the curb. Throw some dice, dude. All right, let's get into college. This is the last thing I want to talk about. So, July 1 has hit. San Diego State, starting off with them, they went ahead and told Mountain West Conference they're back, baby. Pac-12 never fell apart. And I keep hearing about how the Pac-12 deal, it's coming, Matt. It's going to be coming. Yeah, it's like basically yet less than a year left. They really need to have it done by the end of July. Notice how at the end of the contract year, ESPN is also laying off a ton of people, right? So how can ESPN lay a ton of people off and then also pay the SEC more, pay for these teams to join the SEC, and or pay the Pac-12 more? It just doesn't make sense. I think the NBA contract is still locked in. They're losing money on it every year. Until they cut that dead weight, I really don't see them, unless they're really, really afraid and they're able to talk to their investors and say, like, look, we got to invest in the SEC because we don't want to lose Florida State, Clemson, and maybe we can like talk Notre Dame in, although we kind of know Notre Dame's not going to join the SEC. So Like we're kind of like hanging on because we really don't want the ACC to implode because then we lose Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's the last piece here. We can't talk Notre Dame into joining the SEC, so we can't also implode the ACC, but we're worried that teams are going to leave anyway. And when Miami and Florida State leave, Notre Dame's also going to leave. Because that's where they're at. ESPN knows that they can't pay for a Notre Dame. They don't want to lose Notre Dame. There's no scenario in my mind where they can keep Notre Dame unless they are able to talk the ACC into keeping their status quo. Now, are they going to just give them more money? Hell no. Why would you break that sweet deal? Right? They have it locked into like 30-36, right? Or 20-36. Yeah. So like they're sitting there, they have like 13 more years on it. They have to be just rubbing their hands together thinking like, we got Notre Dame for 13 more years. Because like even if the Big Ten adds Oregon and Washington, that's not going to sway Notre Dame to join. They like the Big Ten and NBC and them, they have to kill the ACC to have Notre Dame join. When Notre Dame flips to the Big Ten, I think that's pretty much it. Right? I don't think the SEC will ever be able to make more money than the Big Ten. You'll have Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, 3 of the Big 5 earners in the entire sport in one conference. Throw in like Penn State and USC and Nebraska and like other big names. Even if like Alabama's still in the SEC, like you're also regionalized. The Big Ten also has the 3 biggest TV markets in the United States and the 3 biggest football brands. So like they win. So I think ESPN's sitting on it right now. They don't want to pay more because they don't have the money. And they don't want to flip Florida State out of the ACC because if they leave, Notre Dame leaves and then they lose them. Because ESPN has no rights to any of the other Big Ten things anymore. So if Notre Dame flips to the Big Ten, even if they stay independent in football, they lose them for everything. The ACC football deal's done. All the other sports are going to flip to the Big Ten. They lose everything from Notre Dame. So they effectively kill their ACC contract because people might sign in to watch like Notre Dame play whatever on ACC Plus. They're never signing in to watch games without like Notre Dame. There's no big brand left if the other big ones jump to another conference. I'll be honest, like it hurts me to say, like NC State, if they're stuck behind, no one's tuning in to watch them play. Heck, Boston College in football, dude. Realistically, right? And heck, that's not even, that's on regular ESPN or whatever. No one's tuning in to watch that baseball game. Random people, because of the Catholic pull of Notre Dame, they might tune in to watch Notre Dame tennis or something, just because it's on. That's why NC State or NBC wants them. And that's why I think ESPN's kind of sitting on it with the Pac-12. Now, for the Pac-12, it sucks. I feel bad for the fans of those other schools. That could very easily been NC State. I mean, it could be NC State in 2 years. We don't know.
But let me ask you this. Let's hypothetically say that the Big Ten takes in Miami, Florida State, or Clemson, Florida State. And the SEC takes in Notre Dame. Does Notre Dame going to the SEC move the needle that much for the SEC?
I think ESPN would pay more. I think that would kind of balance it out. But I'll be honest, I don't see Notre Dame giving up like all their rivalries to play Mississippi State, dude. Like, right? They're supposed to be a national brand. There's only one conference that spans from coast to coast anymore. And they're going to lose the USC rivalries. If you bring in Notre Dame to the Big Ten, now you have Notre Dame USC rivalries going in baseball, in other sports. You get it like Michigan and Ohio State are year round. They're both winning double digit like Big Ten titles every year. The rivalry is completely year round. I hear people talk about like Duke, UNC, and they have success at other sports, but like the rivalry isn't like a year round thing for those two schools. It's not like a pure hatred, which I think the Big Ten, with everyone coming in, you have a chance to kind of make that happen. Like you have to be good at football and semi good at basketball or whatever, and then other sports like hockey or whatever, because like Notre Dame's in, USC might not be in that, but like Notre Dame's going to be playing Ohio State and Michigan, and you know that their rivals pretty much with Michigan and the other ones. I hear people say like Notre Dame, they have rivalries with USC, Michigan, Michigan State. Some people hate some of those schools more. Some people still hate like Purdue and like other Indiana. Like if you're growing up in Indiana, you might hate them more. And heck, Notre Dame could play them more in the Big Ten. If they join the SEC, like your closest school is what? Kentucky, maybe? I know I have to look at a map. Tennessee? I don't know where they kind of come across, right? So like you're coming in, and I have a feeling that the first time that TV contract is a little bit less than the Big Ten, because Notre Dame doesn't bring a TV market with it. It'd be something different if they were in Chicago, right? They're in Indiana. So like they can't even force, ESPN can't come in and force cable companies to say, hey, we signed Notre Dame. You have to have our TV channel in New York and Chicago and LA. Like you can't do it. The Big Ten can do that because they have Northwestern. They have USC now and UCLA. They have Rutgers, where they can tell New York, like, hey, you got to carry the Big Ten network. And they're like, yeah, we will. And like Chicago's the same way, and same with LA. That's what I say when they have the three biggest markets and those major states, they do. They have them locked up. So like outside of Florida and Texas, which I hear a lot of people say, like, can the Big Ten get into Florida? It's like, absolutely they can. Because I don't see anyone taking Miami. Even if the SEC sometime, like somehow blindsides me and takes Florida State and Clemson, which like I said, that would almost be a big self-hammer to ESPN though. Because a lot of people forget Notre Dame. Like I hear no one's talking about Notre Dame. They lose them. If you take those two schools to the SEC, you're losing Notre Dame. And you can't tell me that Clemson and Florida State, even in other sports, and the small amount of football that they bring, they're nowhere near it. Like, let's just be honest. Like, Notre Dame's the number one school. Everyone wants them because they're not just one school. They're a religion, basically. Every Catholic dude kind of pulls for them. Unless they have other allegiances, right? It's like, yeah I didn't go to school, but definitely love Notre Dame. It's like, I know a lot of people like that. Like, even down here, like there's like a couple people in my neighborhood that like Notre Dame. And it's kind of like, yeah, I know you didn't go there. You're from here, like, bro, but you might be Catholic or whatever. Like, no one's knocking it. It's kind of their thing. Like, none of the other big schools, like Xavier's talking about adding football. They're not going to be D1, though. They'll play in, like, the smaller league with, like, Dayton or whatever the other Ohio State's or Ohio schools playing. And that's it. Notre Dame will be the premier Catholic school. Not unlike basketball D1, where you have Georgetown, you have Gonzaga. Notre Dame's pull in basketball isn't as strong because you can have other Catholic regional teams to cheer for. In football, it's just the one. Just the one. So that's the one thing that stood out to me. The Big 12's adding, but they're also subtracting. I keep hearing how the Big 12's better off. They're losing Texas's 100K stadium and Oklahoma's 80K stadium. Do you know what the biggest stadium in the new Big 12 is, Matt?
No.
BYU. Do you know who number 2 is? It's an old Big 12 member, not a new one. BYU's new. So who did you say?
TCU.
No, TCU is very small. I think TCU is one of the smaller. They only have 47,000. So BYU has 63, a little bit over that. Iowa State would be number 2. Iowa State, I think I saw the finances. Iowa State might be the big number 2 bankroller in the entire conference, which kind of stood out to me. They're at a little bit over 61, maybe 61 and a half here. The only other ones that are even over 60 are Texas Tech and West Virginia. That's it. Everyone else is below 60,000. And so you're telling me that that's going to be the new big three conference? Like, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm sorry, you can't take your two biggest teams, let them walk. And I'm not knocking any of the Big 12 schools. Could they win games? Hell, we saw TCU beat Michigan last year. Hell of a game. Would it happen 10 out of 10 times? Probably not. Most likely not. I would hope Michigan isn't throwing 2 pick sixes every time they play, right? So can they win? Yes. But I have a feeling that these teams, I'm afraid that we're going to see a bigger divide. And right now, the Pac-12, the schools that are left behind, the pressure is on them. ESPN's making all these layoffs, and they're laying off big names. Let me see, because I put together a list of ones that I had ready for the show, and I said I was going to talk about it a little bit later in the show. Let's go through. Jalen Rose, that's an NBA from Michigan. Todd McShay, the big draft guy with Mel Kiper. Susie Kolber, I think she had issues or whatever before. Keyshawn Johnson, Steve Young, Matt Hasselbeck, which is a lot of their Monday night crew, right?
Yeah.
Max Kellerman, which he was their big boxing and other sports guy, so he's done. And then Jeff Van Gundy, which was the other NBA guy, he was doing games. So Jalen was on a bunch of the other podcasts and things, which I was kind of surprised because I think his podcast shows and even his other regular shows on there, he had a bunch of them because they were doing really well. So for them to cut him and a lot of other big names, like Todd McShay is not a small name by any means, right? This isn't hey, we're going to go ahead.
The McShay one was the one that really surprised me. Just because I feel like how many more years is Kiper going to stay in? Because he's been involved with the draft for a long time. But I think, why wouldn't you go with someone younger that potentially can be running the draft stuff?
Well, the reason is Kiper's gone, probably for retirement in a little bit, right? So they take McShay knowing that they'd have to pay him for a longer amount of time. They're saying we can bring someone younger in, someone cheaper, maybe sign them to a longer deal contract. Really, it's a contract with these guys. So you try to get someone young, maybe sign them the rookie contract, right? Hey, we're going to sign you for 10 years for this smaller salary because no one's putting you on radio or anything right now. And then you're going to work with McShay until he retires and then take over. Now, after that rookie contract's up, then they're really only paying one guy instead of paying Kiper and McShay and a potential replacement, right? Same with some of the NBA guys. You fire some of the big name guys and then you hire some other older coaches or whatever at smaller salaries. I think there were some other ones. I think David Pollock from Georgia, didn't he get let go later?
Yeah,
he was one of the game day guys. I think there were a couple other ones that I missed because that was the initial wave. I texted Matt. I said, "Well, shit, I better write this down because I want to talk about it on the show." Because you're telling me, hey, the Pac-12's hearing big things from ESPN. It's oh yeah, are they? They're going to, hey, we just signed a big contract with ESPN. Meanwhile, they just fired 50 guys. And they're not just no-name guys like before, where it's hey, ESPN laid off 50 cameramen or whatever. Now your broadcast going to look shitty as hell. And you're not going to realize it until you watch a game on Fox and then go back and watch one on ESPN and you're what the hell? Are they filming this on an iPhone 7? Why does it look like this? So that's my thing with it. The new Big 12, I want to see those teams succeed. I hate that they're stuck with the Big 12 name because it's almost you have the Big 10, that's the top, and the Big 12 is basically telling everyone else that it's right underneath. It's the big number 2 conference. So it's the second Big 10. It's the minor league version, right? So that's how the branding for me works. I know some people are going to say, well, the Big 12 is Texas and Oklahoma. It's yeah, used to be. Used to be Nebraska, too, with the Big 8 or whatever. Now the numbers don't even make sense. The Big 10 can't change until they own every big school, right? Then they will just become the NCAA. just be those schools that are left.
They'll just be the big.
The big, baby. The big conference. Well, they kind of already do that. What's the big logos, the B1G or whatever? This one has the big network, which I'm kind of surprised because I thought the Big Ten network was going away. Maybe this will be the last 10K they do in Chicago. I was hoping I could make it up for one. Maybe they'll never have the chance again. Maybe they'll do a peacock run instead. You wear feathers and you run around your neighborhood. I don't know, but that's my big stories I wanted to hit on this week. I want to hit on some of the other Big 12 moves. I don't think they're done. I don't think it's done. Obviously, I think Notre Dame, no one's talking about it, so I wanted to spend and give my thoughts on Notre Dame this week because I feel like they want to be in the Big Ten. All their rivals are now slowly starting to go to the Big Ten. I really don't think they're going to stick around with like a Pitt and whatever Big East schools are left if the other ACC schools that they joined for leave. Like, do they stay independent in a smaller conference? It's like Pitt, Miami, like basically the old Big East. Like, what if those schools don't get invited and the ACC crumbles and you're left with like a Virginia Tech, Miami, Pitt, Syracuse, Boston College? Like, does Notre Dame just keep a 5-deal agreement with that school, that conference? Maybe. ESPN would probably love that, right? So I'm sure this is going to take a lot longer. The Pac-12 thing has to be hammered out first, but I don't have anything for the final bell. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on, Matt?
No, just be safe this 4th of July week and don't do anything like blow your hands off with fireworks.
Stop, drop, and roll, man. That's the key. People forget it because you don't practice it when you're old. Some people probably roll and they can't even get back up. So roll on a hill, you can get some momentum and hop right back up. It'll look more natural than if you're like rolling around for 5 minutes on the ground trying to get up. That's my tip. Don't drink too much. Definitely don't drive because I don't want to see any idiots on the road. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.